everyone. Welcome to an analog edition of ARG Presents. I'm your good buddy, your good pal, your lifelong friend, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man I simply refer to as the King Dong of Pong. I give you the Brent.
I'm actually horrible at Pong in all its iterations.
You just blew it for me, Brent. Come on.
Sorry, man. The truth has to be known.
Listen.
Pong, my worst possible games. I'm not good with rotary controls.
All that said, this week, we spun the wheel, we made the deal, and the deal we're going with, my friends, is BAM! It's consoles from Binatone. Now, Binatone may not be something you've ever heard of. I know I didn't know who the heck they were.
Not a single little itty bitty bit of them.
But this was a pie piece that got us going down the research road. Binatone's consoles that we're going to be looking at are based around BAM, the AY-3-8500 chip. This was a chip that was heavily used in integrated circuits that did ball and paddle games. All right, so all the consoles we're going to look at today are based around this chip, and all come from the company Binatone. These were all the rage back in the mid 70s. I guess the first time I had a Pong experience, the Brent, was one of our relatives had one. I had sat down and played it, and I've mentioned this before, but truth of the matter is, the amazing part of these machines to me was the fact that you could control something on the TV. Like that in itself. You were broadcasting on TV, brother. You were a TV star. Now, when you're a little kid, you don't realize that you just broadcasted locally, and it's a stick and a little dot bouncing around. But it was quite remarkable to me back in the day just to be able to play this stuff on the TV and have a look at it. Do you recall your first Pong?
What this made me do is I wanted to be able to control people on TV.
Yeah.
I remember that distinctly. After playing Pong, I was like, okay, I've got this sort of power, and this is cool. I'm controlling things on TV. But now I want to be able to tell the people on TV what to do. Well, it obviously didn't work out so well. And then we had FMV games, and I found out that was a horrible idea, and I didn't really want that.
There you go. So we thought before we dove into the Binatone, we'd chat a little bit about Pong systems in general, the Brent. Brent took a little dive into this. What do you got, the Brent?
Aaron, I am so glad that we did this episode.
Oh, okay.
Because it made me look back at history, right? And really, because I was born in 1977.
Yeah.
So Pong had come and gone in its earliest forms before I even existed. So I really didn't look back. I can't look back fondly on Pong games because I didn't really play them. I played them after the fact. So if you go back to 1982, right, Pong hits the arcades. Huge hit. The next game to come out that actually did anything was in 74 Speed Race, which was, so you've already got a divide. You've got your Pong games, which we're just going to call them paddle games, and you've got your racing games, right?
Okay.
Everything for the next, 5 years were variations of these two types of games. And I'm not going to go down the driving one because that's not what we're talking about today, but I'm going to shoot from the Pong ones. In 1975, Gunfight came out.
All right.
Right? Now, you might think, well, how is that a Pong game? It is because of the positioning of the men both on either side of the screen, and they are controlling dots that travel across the screen. So it has been credited with being inspired by Pong.
All right.
It's Pong with more control, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's obviously a different game, but that's where it came from. Now, let's jump forward a little bit to when Space Invaders was released, 1978. The creators of Space Invaders said that his main source of inspiration was Pong and Gunfight. He wanted to take those two games, which have the same kind of basic players on the side of the screen, and kind of mesh them with also Breakout clones. which breakout clones, obviously, from the Pong era, but single-player Pong, basically. Yeah. And that's how we got Space Invaders. So now Pong has inadvertently inspired the shooting generation of the late 70s. And of course, Space Invaders spawns off tons of different clones. You know, your Galaxians, your Galagas, all that sort of thing. And it all comes from Pong, right?
Yeah, I'll buy it.
And if you think about it, because I never really thought, well, Pong is basically Space Invaders, and Space Invaders is such a launching pad for other games that the influence Pong had. See, for me, Pong was just the simplest thing you could do to get something on a screen. But if you remove that kind of mindset, these people didn't, first of all, they were limited by the technology, obviously, right? But they also didn't have the understanding of what people wanted in a video game. So to be safe, you take something that's like Pong and you stay in that wheelhouse and you get Space Invaders. And then from there, you've got all these other games, and they're all just variations of Pong or driving games. Like I said, there's a branch right at the beginning where you've got your driving games and Pong. So we really have to thank Pong not only for being the technology side of video games, but it spawned so many games, the concept-wise, which I never thought about until this week.
I never thought
thought that was very interesting.
I never thought about Space Invaders and Pong being totally similar, but now that I think about it, I can see where you're coming from there.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to look back and make those connections unless you really read on what people's inspirations were. And the guy that came up with Space Invaders was very honest. He was like, listen, I played Gunfight, I played Pong, and I said, how can I kind of mesh this experience and give the world something completely new? And he did it, and it was, the birth of video games.
A lot of the big players back in the day had these Pong consoles. And since we're talking about the AY3 8500 chip, listen to this rundown. These are various manufacturers that use this chip in their Pong system. So you had Sears Hockey Pong, the Coleco Telstar series, which that's about 1 million consoles right there. You've got the Odyssey series, all the way from the Odyssey 300 up to the 3000. This predates the Odyssey 2, which of course moved on to a much more advanced processor. The Radio Shack TV scoreboards, the Unisonic Sportsman, the Philips Telestar game, the Play-O-Tronic, I like the name of that one, the Video Master, the APF TV Fun, you gotta have fun, Sports Master, here's another great one, the Prinstronic Micro 10 Deluxe Color TV game, that's a mouthful, the Amiprod television game, and the Adman Grandstand, which we had a cup of coffee with. So you've got a lot of action on this chip. We're going to concentrate pretty much specifically on one of the Binatone consoles, but we're going to take a look at all of them, the Brent. The one we went ahead and concentrated on was the Binatone. This is the original Binatone console that released to start the whole showdown for Binatone. It's the Binatone TV Master MK4 home game system. Now, the debuts and dates of these things are sort of up in the air, okay? And so I a lot of them just say 1977, but there could be some that were. I saw people commenting that they had theirs in 76, for example. So there's no one knows for sure. They didn't really take care of that sort of thing back in the day.
That's true.
This was of course, came out of the UK, as all these did, and this, of course, ran on the AY3-8500. This had 4 built-in games and a black and white display and a built-in speaker. It was RF, as one would imagine. You needed six D batteries for this thing. So it was going to be... I always loved the D batteries. You also could get an external power supply for it, and it came with 2 paddles. Now, this game, this machine was pretty much top of the line back when it was released. It does have the little paddles on it, and it does have the 4 games, but you also got a bunch of options. If you are watching the video of this, you will see to the on the left side of the console, you've got a bunch of switches, or they're banks and banks of switches. Those switches are there to do things such as turn the sound on and off, change the speed, change the angles, turn on and off auto serve, stuff like that. And then you'll see on the right, you have 4 different boxes, and each box represents a different event. Now, we all know how these Pong games go, the Brent. The events are basically different types of Pong. It's not like there's going to be a radically different game that pops up when you pick these. Now, of course, this was a black and white machine. So some of these old Pong machines would have that sort of cellophane sort of a screen cover. I did not see anyone talking about this, so I'm assuming this never had that sort of thing that would change the color.
I don't believe these had overlays.
And so what you've got here are, of course, are different versions of Pong. So what do you got? What do you get for your money on this? You get really, to be honest with you, you're only getting 3 games. You're getting squash, football, and tennis. Okay, football in this case meaning soccer if you're in the States. Let's talk about let's go through these, the easiest and more complex. First, you've got tennis. Okay, tennis is 2-player Pong. Each side has a paddle. You're on a board, and you whack the ball back and forth, and when you miss, the other guy gets a point. Pretty basic stuff. Then you've got squash. Squash is where you're both on the same side, and you have to take turns hitting the ball up against the wall, if you will, the computer wall. And when you miss, if it's your turn to hit the ball and you miss it, your opponent gets a point. Simple stuff. Then you've got football, which effectively adds an extra controllable defender. So it's like tennis with 2 extra guys, basically, on each side. And then finally, you've got squash practice. Now, I should mention, all these games that I've mentioned are 2-player. There was no AI. Yeah. You couldn't flip on the one player option. But with squash practice, you basically, this is the most remedial. You hit the ball up against the wall over and over, and every time you miss the ball, there's a point scored. I don't know exactly who gets that point. The computer. Let's go with that.
Yeah, the wall.
Aside from the other options I mentioned, you also have the option of increasing or decreasing the size of your paddle to increase difficulty. This stuff was actually fairly standard for the day. What do you think? And I know we both went through these things and fiddled with it. What did you think of this thing? I mean, to me, it just seemed like all the other ones, to be completely blunt with you.
Well, you did forget to mention, maybe you're going to do it later, but there is a half game in there. The way the Binatone works is you actually, to select a game, you slide a switch up and down a panel, right? That's right. And it rests on one of the 4
like a notch.
Game modes. Right. And if you put it in the very middle, where there technically isn't a game.
Okay, I don't know about this.
It glitches out a little bit. And you'll be playing football, but the left side will have a 3rd paddle that they can control. It sets just off of where the 2nd paddle for the other player is. And so you essentially get a little bit of a bonus, or the other team gets a little bit of a handicap. So, and it's not programmed in. It's just that the game doesn't know how to recognize in between those 2, switches. So it just kind of glitches out. But I thought that was kind of interesting.
I didn't even know about that. That's interesting. No. And the thing is, that's the kind of stuff you would do if you were bored. When you had these Pong machines, you played enough Pong, I can absolutely see. It's like, what happens when we put the knob in the middle? that's absolutely something I can see doing. Did you actually? What did you?
I always wondered.
Go ahead.
I always wondered why they didn't call these foosball instead of going with football or hockey or any of the other names, because really foosball is a lot closer to what you've got. You've got a goalie and then you've got an up guy, but that's neither here nor there. This, for what it is, now you're not gonna spend 100 hours on this. The replayability is solely nostalgic, or you and your brother or your buddy or your mom and your dad, they grew up with this and they're wanting to play it again. The speed, being able to adjust the speed, very good. Being able to adjust the paddle size, very good. It would have been awesome if you could adjust the speed or the paddle size, I mean, for just one player, but I don't believe that was an option. That kind of handicaps someone who was really good. But that's okay. I'm not going to down it for that. This is a solid option for a home way of playing Pong. It has a lot of features that a lot of other games had. We're not here to debate that. But the features it had were really good. However, its hit detection does come into play. Sometimes you can be right on the ball and the ball will just go through your paddle, and that's old gaming, baby.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. So you do have to realize that's a thing. But it's a good console. It's a good console. It's among the first, if not the first. So how can you go wrong, right?
I want to mention that one of the reasons this even came up on the wheel is if you have a Mister, they have released a core, which is how we played this, by the way, because we did not have a Binatone TV Master MK4. But we played this on the...
And if you do want to get one of these, it's analog only. Yeah. Be aware of that. It plugs into your antenna slot. RF. So you have to have a TV that supports that.
But we played this on the Mr. Core, and I will say the Mr. Core for this, it does what you would think. It does. It has a few frills, which includes changing the background colors, but I'll get to a reason why that's not unexpected. It does have the options that you get on this thing. I was disappointed that the Core didn't support the more advanced Binatones that we're going to talk about, but maybe they're going to add that down the road. But this does play. You can play squash. You can play all the stuff. You can play by yourself. It does support the analog control. So so if you're interested in trying this on your own, I saw that these Binatones were around. Like, I didn't go through and price them, but I saw that people had picked them up. They made them at $1 million of these things, so they're not that difficult to get hold of if you're looking for one.
They're very affordable. Yeah, especially if you're in the UK, because that's where these things are native to. Yeah. You can pick them up. I think some people in the Discord were saying they picked them up for, less than $50.
Yeah. And of course,
piece of history right
One thing I should mention is apparently they're quite robust. So as long as you had one where the batteries didn't get in there and mess it up, these things tend to last, which is funny because that's the way a lot of these old electronics are. They were simple, but that made them easier to maintain. Now, so that right there that's the big dog of the Binatone family in terms of the one that led the race. And I wasn't able to confirm this fully, but from what I read, this was one of the higher selling ones, if not the highest selling one. But
the first one out.
But it certainly was not the only one. Because we're going to talk about some of the other models here while we're at it. So I want to talk firstly about the Binatone. This right here we're going to talk about is the Binatone. There it is. Binatone TV Master 4+2. What a name, by the way. The TV Master 4+2. Okay, so again, this was running pretty much on the same technology. This game includes 6 games. That's the 4+2, by the way. This has squash practice, football, tennis, target, and shooting. Okay, so this one has gun games in it. Now, I'm going to tell you something right off because I've got all the models of this thing listed. The TV Master 4 plus 2, okay, it's the exact same system as the TV Master MK6, okay? It's exactly the same, except that the light gun is only optional while it's included with the MK6. So if you bought the TV Master 4 plus 2, you had the option of purchasing a gun to go along with it. Otherwise, you just had Otherwise, you had a TV Master 4 without the gun stuff. Okay, so does that make any sense?
2 games you can just look at.
Right, exactly. Now, so it's kind of neat that it came with a gun. I kind of like that. Of course, what are the gun games? You're basically shooting at a bouncing ball. You're shooting at the Pong ball with the gun. Still, it'd be kind of neat. I couldn't find any pictures of the gun that came with this, but I'm assuming it's what.
It's very realistic.
Is it? Yeah, I figured it would be. You know, we should mention. We didn't really get into it. We should talk about the controllers. If you're watching the video of this, you'll see on the screen there are 2 ports. These are not wired controllers. These are actually plug-in controllers, and they're small little paddles. You hold them in your hands, and they've got a little rotating wheel on them. I've used that sort of paddle before. I will say one thing about those. When you're playing Pong, like that is the ultimate way to play Pong. Nowadays, if you try to play it with the joystick, it just sucks. You really need that little spinner. And these things were apparently small, but fairly functional. And otherwise,
Now, Aaron, just as a little tangent here, do you think that it's odd that rotary controls and light guns were sort of the first input devices for video games?
It's funny you should mention it because it is to me. I'd always think of light guns as a more modern affair, but we know that they were around for a long time. We know the technology was around.
Shooting galleries well before video games.
That's right. We both come from a background where we with a lot of your classic, like your mechanical arcade games, and those things were a staple of the arcade. So there's no reason why they couldn't bring them home. It is odd. I guess the fact that you've got the gun and you're shooting the Pong ball. But I mean, I remember playing games with the gun, and it was sort of fun that you've got a gun. That's always a good time. We're Americans. We love that.
Yeah. So
you got to have the gun. But it is strange to me. It's also strange that the paddle sort of made a comeback with the 2600. When they had the paddle games, you can see why they did that, because the control is elite when it comes to these sorts of games. I kind of miss the paddle, to be honest with you.
Now, you have to look. Besides the paddle and the gun, of course, you had steering wheel games, which is just a paddle with a bigger wheel. And then, do you think that they switched to joystick type games? Joystick and the button's always been kind of there. But do you think they switched to joystick games for cost, or do you think they switched to joystick type games due to easeability?
Well, I don't think it's either.
Easier
I don't think
to
it's
play.
either one of those things. I just think that you could do 1,000 times more stuff with a joystick than you can with a knob. I mean, you're really limited with a knob.
That's fair.
So I'd say that's the reason. So, but it's funny. We'll get into that here in a minute, because guess what? These things eventually grow out of the of having one of these. So here's a picture of the MK6, by the way. Again, exactly the same as the one we just looked at, except this one came with a gun. So there you go. So the next one on the docket here, and you'll see a naming cadence here. This is the MK8. Now this one's a little bit different looking. It's got a big rotating knob, and you'll notice it's got, guess what, 2 joysticks on it there, the Brent. This one came with 10. This one came with 8 built-in games. I almost jumped the gun there. I don't want to give them too many games. Which it was basically all the games you saw before. It also came with, let me see here. You got your target games. You got squash, 2 squashes. This one also had a football, tennis, ice hockey games on it as well. So they added, of course, we all know what that means. You've got, it's just basically the same thing with some additional crap. And that's how they kept releasing these things over and over. So if they're going to have the MK8, okay, then you know what's next, right? Bam. It's the
double digit time.
It's the TV Master MK10. Now, this one had 10 games. It had target 1, target 2, basket 1, basket 2, grid ball, squash 1, squash 2, football, tennis, and ice hockey. Okay, this one had 2 detachable paddles with analog joysticks and fire buttons. Now, one thing that you'll notice there is that this game has shooting games, but this doesn't have a gun. This actually has you playing the shooting games with the joystick. So they've kind of did away with the gun at this point. Now, you notice that I've mentioned all these black and white systems, right? Well, guess what? Every one of these systems had a color equivalent, okay? So the color equivalents for the games were the color TV game, the color TV game 4+2, the color TV game MK6, and then I'm going to highlight one of the color ones because it was the last one they released of this sort, which was BAM. This is the color TV game MK10. Okay, so this was nice. Like the big dog of this series. Okay, this one had all the aforementioned games. This one also had all kinds of options on it. Now, this one I managed to get a hold of the flavor text on the box. So check this out. This is how they push this game. It says 10 separate push buttons for game selection. Games include football, ice hockey, grid ball, basketball, solo basketball, tennis, squash, squash solo, plus 2 built-in remote control shooting games. Joystick hand controls for XY movement. Automatic on-screen scoring. Scores color keyed for each player. Built-in push-button firing device for shooting game. They make that sound awful awesome. Different authentic sounds for hit, rebound, and score. Selectable fast and slow ball speeds for professional and amateur ratings. Bat sizes separately adjustable for left and right player, allowing for handicap. That's what you wanted. Selectable auto and manual service, suitable on most sizes and brands of color or black and white TVs. So there you go. That was the big moose of a game. Yes, the joysticks. Yeah, because that's really all you would need, right? Because that's so.
Well, technically, I guess up and down.
These are, from what I've read, these are joysticks they're 2-directional joysticks. So that was the last one, as far as I could tell, that they actually released. Again, dates on this vary, but this was somewhere in the late 70s. So if this is the one, I guess if you're going to get one of these, you might as well get this one. Although it does suck that you don't get the gun. You know, because I would kind of like to play with a gun on one of these. That's the whole family of the Binatones, Brent.
I have a question, Aaron. Can you imagine if a console released in today's world with 10 included games?
Well, I mean, mini consoles do. Where's our mini Pong? That's not the worst idea now that I think about it. A mini Pong release that would play on an HDMI TV. And have like all the games. Come on, that's a good idea. I'm giving someone big money right there. Do you think you would prefer the joystick or the dial?
I hate rotary controls.
Really?
I shouldn't say that. I'm really bad with rotary controls. I'm great with analog sticks, but rotary controls, I don't know, man. My brain just doesn't work that way.
You know, I regret billing you as the King Dong of Pong. In retrospect, that was...
Oh, I told you, man. I told you right off the bat. I'm really bad with rotary controls. I'm okay with steering wheels for driving games, like stuff like pole position where you got to really move left and right fast. I'm okay with that. But when it comes to rotary controls for, say, Tempest or obviously all your Pongs, your Arkanoids, I'm really bad at them. And it's one of the many, many reasons why I absolutely hate breakout style games.
Fair.
Is the controls.
I want to, before we move down to the wheel here, I want to thank a couple people. You know, information on these systems was surprisingly difficult to find. And I've used a couple sources. I want to thank the video portions of this. I want to thank Scratch Literate. Check out his YouTube page. He really saved my bacon on more than a few of these, the Brent. And then when it comes to looking up these models here, I want to thank old-computers.com. They really had the whole line of the Binatones, and that saved my hiney. it's funny, right before we went on air, you were asking me about the Binatone that had a cartridge slot. I didn't know what you were talking about, and sure enough, I looked it up. I don't think this was part of the 8500 chip series, but there was a model that Binatone put out called the Binatone Superstar, and this was a system that had a cartridge slot in it, and this apparently was licensed from Magnavox. Now, it doesn't really fall under the umbrella of what we're talking about today, but it's something for the future. We might have to take a look at the Binatone Superstar. I should mention a little bit about Binatone before we go, because the fact that the company made all these and is still they were still around. I think ultimately they've been gobbled up. They were a UK company founded in '58, by the way. So they were way back, the Brent. And in the United Kingdom, the founder was a guy named Partap Lavani, and they were headquartered in Hong Kong eventually. As of 2016, 2018, they were making mobile telephones, phones for older seniors, two-way radios, baby monitors, tablets, and GPSs. It was started in '58 by two brothers, Gulu Lavani and Partap Lavani. Gulu and Partap. Those are names I've never heard before. The company, Binatone, was named after their sister, Bina. What do you think of that? B-I-N-A.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
It says here in '83, Binatone was the first in Europe with fixed-line consumer products that could be bought at electronic retailers. So that's kind of neat. In 2008, Dino Lavani, which is the son of Gulu, purchased the company and took over as the chairman. Get this, Binatone, and this will mean something to the people in the UK, Binatone was the official shirt sponsor of Queen's Park Rangers Football Club from 2003 to 2006. And they also, I think eventually they merged. They somehow went in with AEG, Motorola. Something went down. I don't think they're still an independent company, but just a few years ago they were still rocking around. So it's kind of neat that the people that made these Pong machines so long ago were still lingering around. Brent, any final thoughts on the Binatone series here?
You know, it's important to understand our history, right?
Yes.
And in video games, it's even more important, especially nowadays when you get so down with all of the video game news that's out nowadays. It's all so depressing. All these AAA companies are doing such horrible things. When you get a chance to step back and look at the simple beginnings and really focus on the technological side and the advancements that were made, it makes you smile, and it makes me so happy that we went down this road, because it's been a rough week. It's been a rough week, and this had me smiling ear to ear, making these connections and reviewing these old games. Yeah. So thumbs up to the Binatone.
This was fun. I really did enjoy researching it, and I do recommend, if you do have a Mister, pick up the 8500 Core. It's fun. It's not something you're going to play forever, but everything's built right into it. Just go in there and play it, and you can see what it was like to play games circa 1977. Then you turn that sucker off, and you load up some Super Nintendo or some X6800 or 1000, whatever you want. Play something like that. You can see the quantum leap we made in just a few short years. Speaking of quantum leaps, Brent, let's leap violently and quantumly on the wheel. Here we go.
You know, the wheel is technically just a big rotary
control.
There you go.
Aaron. And you hate dials. So, Brent, this week, oh man, this is what I'm not looking forward to. Our Retro Rewind piece, the XEGS from Atari, the ZEGS console. And our new piece this week, you know it's trouble when it's chat subject choice. So you people in the chat room, you better pay attention, because we may be calling upon you if that gets spun. This is the wheel piece where you in the chat, the live chat right now, would pick what we would do next week. Brent, are you ready?
I am.
Here we go.
Don't do a wheel
And the
dance.
winner is...
Uh-oh.
Oh, man. This is going to go down hard. The Ohio Scientific Challenger, suggested by you, the Brent. What the heck is that?
this was the pain piece.
What?
This series of wheel pieces.
Why?
This was the hurt.
You suggested it. Why would you hurt us? Well, what is it?
Let's just say we're not going too far forward in time.
Is this a calculator?
No.
Where did you?
No, it's been so long since I researched this. I don't totally remember what it is.
Oh my god. That's just dandy. That's.
You want to read that out one more time for the folks at home?
Yes, for you at home that want to follow along, we're going to be playing games on the Ohio Scientific Challenger. We live next to Ohio. There's very little science going on there. I can't imagine what this is.
Well, that's what the challenge. It's a challenge for the folks
Holy
of Ohio.
Smokes. Okay, man. Well, thank you, everyone, for hooking up with us this week. And before we go, I do want to make a quick announcement, a reminder, if you will, that in just a few short weeks, the Brent, it will go down. It's going to go down. It's going to go down hard. It's going to be ICC, the International Computer Club, Brent. It's going to be the 18th.
Yes.
It's going to be awesome, and it's going to be live Saturday, the 18th of September at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join myself and a cast of thousands as we all get together to talk ICC, International Computer Club. We're going to have people giving demonstrations, going over book collections, or God knows what. They're going to show off their latest 3D prints, the latest machines they've been working on. Who knows what? I think I'm going to do a little something on the pinball machine for that particular show, Brent. I don't usually contribute.
Oh, there you go.
But if you are a member of our Discord, you can go to the ICC area and sign up. Sign up on the sign-up sheet and go to work. We'll take any sort of demonstration or talk. If you're a merchant and you'd like to go in there and hawk your wares, you're more than welcome to do that. If you have a publication you want to talk about or a book coming out, whatever you'd like to do, it's pretty much a wide open forum for anything that's retro computer or classic console game related. You are welcome to come in. We'll stream that bad boy, Brent, on the Twitch that night, and we'll also have it set up to where you can be in there if you'd like. If you're part of our Discord, you can join up with video chat or whatever and be right there in the room. We always go around the horn in these things and ask people if they have anything going on that they want to talk about. So everyone's involved. It's a Saturday night, Tech Boy, September 18th, Saturday. It'll be 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think that's all we got, Brett. You got anything you want to chat with before we go?
Real quick, I want to apologize for the third week in a row. I do suck.
Correct.
Air Shack is not quite in our supporter video yet he is a supporter. This week, I solely blame the release of Humankind. I've played it for about 30 hours now, and I'm having a good old time, but it is distracting me from my responsibilities, and I do apologize.
You told me
for
you
that.
couldn't come over and play pinball this week because you were too busy, and you spent 30 hours playing that game. You're a geek. That's all. I'm done with you, pal. That's it. He disappeared. That's the way it should be. Until next week, everybody, thanks for joining us, and for God's sakes, play some Pong today. Go!
Oh, thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the show. We want to say a special thank you to Duncan Styles for our vector-style graphic, and BarkBit for our amazing music. Would you like to help keep ARG spinning for as little as $1 a month? You can do so at patreon.com/ARGpresents, just like these fine folks.
Z9K9, Jerry Dennington, John Dykeman, Retroalgy, James Shackle, Texas Foosballer, Sundown, Oram, Super Tech Boy, Dave Terrence, Mr. B, Roushi, Graham W. Betke, Dave Velociraptor, Bernhard Lucas, Steve Rasmussen, Anthony Jarvis, Pachaco 6502, Kevin Bean, Andy Jones, Andy Craig, Rob Flack O'Hara, Jason Warrens, Nitsuyama, Chris Foles, Frodo NL, The Slow Norris, John Schaller, Carrie Heather, Terry Howard, Olaf Hope, and Rolo.
Supporters get access to the Discord channel and their names called out in the credits. Don't want to explain another credit card bill? That's okay too. You can leave us a positive review on Spotify or Apple iTunes. Have an idea for a wheel piece? Send it to us at argpresents@mail.com. We film live every Sunday, 10 a.m. EDT. We hope to see you there.